I'm representing our team, half of whom are here, Paul and Bill. And our team is called Pulp Fiction. And I can tell you later why it's called Pulp Fiction. But this sticker is going to go to one person who can answer the following questions. These are very rare, by the way. So the director who did this film, Pulp Fiction, what's that person's latest and potentially last film? Bill and Paul who can't answer. So his latest and potentially last film. Yes, who said that? Yes.
There you go, well done.
Yes. Oh, what was I going to talk about? Yes. So this talk is called How We Are Solving Internal Technical Documentation at Spotify. Spoiler, we're using DocStack.
Spoiler.
Sorry about that. So yeah, this is a Porsche, some model Spider, I think, and I think it's the fastest. It's the car that's gone the fastest from 0 to 60 miles an hour, right? I've heard that in Sweden it's 0 to 100, right? So 0 to 60 miles per hour in 2.2 seconds. Anyway, I feel that we in our little team have gone from like 0 to 60 in quite a short time, like 1.5 years or something, or 1 year. Like, yeah, 1 year we've gone like from 0 to 60. What does 0 look like? 0 looks like large tech company, loads of engineers who are producing platforms and other pieces of software for other engineers at that company to use. So yeah, just to emphasize, our scope is internal technical documentation. So it's not external stuff and it's not non-technical, it's internal technical. So a large amount of engineers want to produce some kind of documentation for their internal users and they don't know where to start, they're not sure what tool to use. We have many tools, Confluence, Google Docs, Lean, doc making machine, I just made that up, where Spotify Tech can create documentation sites very easily, and we have a decent search engine that finds the information for others, it's standardized, etc., etc. So we've got 800 doc sites gone up in the last year, and it's just become the standard of Spotify. So it's a great success story, and we've done it in a year. So this talk really is about how did we do it then? How did we get from 0 to 60 in such a short time? So here are 15 reasons how, as opposed to the Netflix series 13 Reasons Why. Wow, that's what people see now. It's quite slow. So first of all, I think the first prerequisite is there has to be a real problem. I mean, Spotify 10 years ago, maybe it wasn't a problem. It wasn't that many, it wasn't that big, and people just worked out stuff. It wasn't a problem. But Spotify has grown so much. There are so many engineers behind this little app, you wouldn't believe it. So there really is a problem, as I just described, and it's causing pain in the organisation. So there's been a couple of productivity surveys, and finding information had been like number 3 on the list. It's like, this is causing us big problems. And the year before that, there was another survey that said that problems with documentation was costing us a certain amount, and that amount was like second on the list or something. So there's a problem that's causing pain. This is one prerequisite. Then another thing that happened is we came across a talk from Riona McNamara of Google about 3 years ago, right at the Docs, I can't remember, I think it was in Portland. We came across this talk, and for me it was an epiphany moment. Google, were talking about the exact problem that we had, and they'd solved it. and she just talked about how they sold it, and she showed the adoption graph of this thing. They built this thing called G3 Docs, and the adoption, and in Google it's huge. There are thousands of doc sites going up, and they were doing this with one engineer and one tech writer or something, two tech writers and one or two engineers. So that was a real wow. They've done it. So this was another prerequisite, or not prerequisite. That's too strong. It was just another reason how we. Spotify has a hack week once a year, which is really fun, where people get to do join up in teams and do stuff that they're passionate about. And I don't know, something happened where suddenly for Hack Week we were building a proof of concept of this thing that we'd seen at Google. So we couldn't quite work out like what they'd done or how they'd done it, but we got the basic idea, and we actually did a proof of concept, and we showed it off in the fair at Hack Week. I wore like a pink hat and got lots of like, why are you wearing a pink hat? Oh, come look at what we've done. Okay, so you're laughing at that one. Then I'll tell the next bit, which is we named it Kazazzle, which was like a made-up name, and that also got a lot of attention. Like, why'd you call it Kazazzle? What's that? So we showed it off and made a fuss, and then we got some attention. And like almost synchronistically, seeing somebody higher up in the org had the insight and power to get us into a team. So to get the technical writers into a team with one or two engineers and say, can we do this here? Should we do this here? What will it take to really do this really good? And all I remember from that meeting is Bourdon coming out to the meeting with a smile, like from ear to ear. And I was a bit shocked, like, what did he just say? What have we got to do? I wasn't really sure, but so they wanted us to put this. This was also a really important thing in the process. And then we actually did some user research to validate this hypothesis. So the hypothesis, not really said what our idea was, but it was basically based on G3 docs, and it was to treat docs like code, and so we actually got a user researcher, and that was also a synchronous event because somebody in our team went on sabbatical, and then we got some money and time that we could use for something, and we ended up getting a user researcher, and we kind of knew exactly what we wanted to do. We thought we knew the problem, and we thought we knew the solutions. It's a bit unfair on this user researcher, and we tried to make her be neutral, but all the time we were going, what does it say? And it backed our hypothesis. Another really good thing was we got this experienced product manager to get us started and keep us laser focused. And he got what we were doing, and he got really excited by that. He once said, I didn't know documentation could be this much fun. I was like, oh, yes, we got him. It's really cool. And then we developed a very clear and inspiring vision, which is Spotify is using technical documentation, go from start to unstuck in less than a minute. Cool. So it's quite ambitious. Yeah. So that was another fact. And then we really made sure that we were super clear about the problem we were trying to solve. So it's the two problems I said in the beginning, or the three in a way, that teams didn't know where to start if they wanted to create. Something I learned is that engineers, teams, they do want to produce documentation. They just don't want any barriers to producing it. They don't want to use Confluence most of the time, or this or that, and then they just give up and use Slack instead to fast messages. So they do want to. So we needed to, yeah. Sorry, I'll talk about there. But so that's one problem to that teams want to produce documentation but didn't know where to start. And then the second thing, people looking for documentation couldn't find it, and when they found it, they didn't know whether to trust it. So super clear about that problem. Keep on repeating it. Don't steer away from that.
So what was the problem? What was the super clear problem?
So the problem is twofold. For teams or individuals who wanted to produce documentation, so they didn't have to ask others answer questions over and over again. They didn't know where to start. They'd say, "Where do we start?" And so that's part of it. And then the consumer information side is people don't know where to find. So is it on Confluence? Is it in Google Docs? Where do I search? We didn't have a good search engine. But those are the two folds. And then the third part is, even if information or documentation is found, can we trust it? Is it out of date? Is it so those three things, and we kept our eyes on those. Another quick development of a minimum lovable product. And you know about that. I credit our engineering manager, Lee Mills, with that. He taught us that a few weeks ago.
So I was wondering if this is your internal terminology?
No. I asked him if I could share it, and he said, yeah, share it. So, minimum lovable product. And then iterate based on feedback. So we got something out in about a week, right, Bill? Like, unbelievable. I don't know how we got something out in a week, and then we just carried on iterating. And it ties in with the next bit. It ties in a bit with this, that we made a quick and good choice to base our solution on MKDocs, which is an open source static site generator. And the reason we were able to do that is because there was an engineer that was helping us during that first week, and he'd already experimented with MKDocs and kind of knew about it and said, yeah, it's good. So we just tested that it was the right way for us, and we quickly made the decision that was the way to go. That was another really, I almost think we've been lucky. It almost feels like there's all these things that happened, and somehow we've had this like flow. So we've almost been lucky. But you make your own luck, right? And then, this has been important for us. Open and encouraging for collaboration and embedding. Embedding is when, at Spotify, when someone from another team spends a week or two in your team. It can be longer, actually, but we've had experiences of 1 week or 2 weeks. And collaboration as well. We've managed to attract people that want to build stuff for us, and so we've actually managed to support doc-based graphics. People were asking for that a lot, and we actually got that achieved by people outside the squad just doing it and submitting PR. So that's that. And then, fully embracing Docs Like Code. We really went for it. As mentioned, we have GitHub Enterprise, and so using all the features of GitHub Enterprise, all that offers for code, we piggyback on that for docs. The documentation.
So, Office for code. What do you say? Office for code. No, GitHub Enterprise, and then you said for the use.
I think I said
all the features it offers for code.
Yes,
all the
features
for
it offers for code.
Okay.
Kind of piggybacking on that. And what else? There's more to say there. But yeah, fully embracing this, and we didn't even know it was a concept. Actually, we didn't know at this stage that it was a thing, and it was only a couple of months later that we found the book, Docs Like Code, and then we realised, wow, it's a thing. It's really cool. So yeah, it's really good. So inside this, what else was this Docs Like code. Using Markdown for so the engineers would have a docs folder in their repository, and they would write Markdown files, and we use the Python Markdown because that's what MKDocs supports. This was another how. And then that we promoted standardization of the doc experience, and the organization bought it. So they were so fed up, I think, with all the chaos that when we started saying this is the way now to do things, write your documentation like this, consume it like that, and that's all you have to think about. The organisation bought that because I think of the past and the history of and also thanks to the Spotify culture, we own the problem and the solution. So our team owns everything from the beginning to the end. So we can be opinionated. We have the mandate to say this is how you should do things. That's pretty important, and it ties in as well that what we're doing is valued in the organisation. So we have support, and we've been quite successful, and that helps for us to be valued. So these were 15. No, that's it really. I mean, those were 15 hows of how we managed to go from 0 to 60 in just a year, and hopefully there's something there that will help. And there's loads more to say, but that's it for this talk.
Questions?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
First, congratulations. That's really good. It's a huge project.
Yeah.
Really but what's the format of your file? You just mentioned Markdown, but do you use Markdown all through even till this publication?
Yeah, Markdown everything. So the engineers get to write in Markdown, and they want that. Us tech writers, I mean, I've been a tech writer for 30 years or whatever, and I can understand that the engineers want to write in Markdown, but they do. They think that's fine because it's like code. And so us tech writers had to kind of get out of the way and say, yeah, go ahead, do that. So it's the whole way, and it's like very simple. Markdown's, much simpler than Excel.
How did someone from higher up in the management meet you guys? I mean, how did you meet someone from the higher management?
Oh yeah, well, at Spotify it's quite flat anyway, quite flat organisation anyway, and so we had some contacts anyway that were a little bit up, and we were like talking to them. But I think the Hack Week thing was quite funny. I mean, I was quite rude to somebody. So I was speaking to someone and explaining it, and then I saw at the corner of my eye somebody quite high up, and then I went, hold on. And then I just started talking to that person who was high up, and started like, oh yes, and he had like 30 seconds for me, so I hardly got to say anything anyway. So then I was like, I've been rude to that one. So that's the kind of tactic.
You did very good pitch.
Yeah.
But then, what was the file format before Markdown? Before this whole.
Yes. So yeah, like I said, so lots of stuff in Confluence, and that's that, and then lots of stuff in Google Docs, and then lots of stuff in teams would like knock up websites to like publish their stuff, and then also GHE Markdown actually, but they would publish somewhere. I don't even know where. Yeah.
Because I actually have thought that I can talk offline later, right?
Yeah.
Because our organization, we work with we are consultants, so we cannot really change the formats. But we are using data as for the doc format, but of course the developers, they like Markdown, so we still have a barrier here.
Yeah.
But we can have it. Thank you.
What would you say was the major advantage of this approach compared to having everything in Confluence, for example? You can use Confluence for kind of keeping track of versions or publishing and things like that.
I think that engineers don't want to use Confluence. So maybe some do. And we wanted to enable the engineers. We wanted to be in line with the engineering workflow and enable them to do their stuff. Because years ago, I used to work for IBM, and then it was one technical writer for 10 developers or whatever. Nowadays it's one tech writer for 200 developers, and we weren't going to. It's just not scalable. So we wanted to enable the engineers, and therefore make it fun for them, really fun and easy for them. And I had one guy that I remember. I used to ask him about documentation for ages, and he wasn't at all interested. And it wasn't. He showed no interest whatsoever. And as soon as we had this product up and working, he came. He asked about. He was fascinated by it. In one afternoon, he knocked up a doc site, and he was like showing off about it. So it's like a totally different reaction, I think. So I think that's been the strength as well.
Can you talk a bit more about you have this legacy docs scattered all around. You have engineers who sort of want better docs but have stigma. Then you build this new tool. How did you make sure that your engineers, and you have a lot of them, know that there is this new tool, it's awesome, they want to use it, and they want to move the old docs to the new tool themselves? Yeah. Because that's what they had to do.
And you're not going to believe my answer. We didn't have to do anything. It's weird. We haven't really advertised or publicized or forced or anything. It's so we've made something that's just easier for them, and we say that it's the standard way, and we're opinionated about that, but we make it in line with their workflow, and they just adopted it. Am I wrong? I don't know. Perhaps I'm just exaggerating because I'm here.
Prove it.
Another way I can explain it is in the past, when you have code, you have tests in a whole different part of the code base. Now you start to see tests in the same, you see code in smaller units, and you see tests that test that small unit. And by having documentation in smaller units, and closer to where actually the code is reflecting, developers are more naturally going to do it. Developers work a lot more in folders, they work on files. So when it's in their mind and it's closer there, they think about it more, they do it more. It's the same thing with tests, test-driven development and kind of pushing out documentation-driven development.
Right. So still last moment of everybody's time, in order to complete a task, so that your devs can close tasks in Jira, do they have to submit docs?
No.
But then I don't know how, what's the motivation?
It's not about mandate, it's about building something that they want to do. Okay. Because if we mandate, they're going to write crappy docs, or they're going to do something that, so that's not the answer. Okay.
Yeah. So we want to make something that's really good and fun and that works for them, and that's got extra little features as well. We have this, so we show the collaborators of the site and things like that. We show stuff that makes it a bit fun as well.
But the years of legacy stuff from Confluence, it's boring to move it.
But we don't, just because teams have just migrated stuff and left old stuff behind as well, which is really cool. I like that when they just leave stuff behind and say, okay, this is the stuff that we put. But there's probably a longer answer that we can talk about later.
So it wouldn't be the case if it was external documentation. I can give it to you.
Sorry.
Go ahead. No, I just commented that I don't think it would be the case if it was external documentation.
Exactly. We're a bit spoiled in a way because it's internal, technical, and
Is it the engineers who write everything?
Yeah. No, nothing. We don't want to be blockers, so we're not even tech writers anymore. It's so we're sort of facilitating the flow of information, guidance, and we give advice and guidance and get people going, get people started, but then just let them do it.
And we provide templates as well, and that kind of thing. Something we're building out more to have engineers, if they're creating a system architecture document or something, then they would have a structure already. These are the pieces that you have to include, and that kind of thing.
One other thing I'd say to that is that we are I'd say we're an infrastructure team now, and we're placed, and all infrastructure teams look at the common needs and they build stuff for the whole company, and that's really where we're at now. And that's where we're placed as well.
exactly. So we're 2 engineers, 1 tech writer, product manager, and engineering manager. That's who we are, and we're facilitating the flow of information across both for technical, internal technical.
So, one question is like, how did because you said like you provide templates, but still they write, they need to follow some style. Like how do they make sure they follow the same style? Do you train them?
No, we drop that. So we just let them do what they want. But I think as time goes on, maybe the templates will be better or something, so we can start to standardise on certain types of document. I think that could be really useful. But in terms of the writing, I think we should have okay.
Yeah, we have writing guidelines.
Yeah, we have
kind of different kinds of resources, but we don't really enforce use of it.
Do you have any customer-facing like API documentation? No.
I mean, we have customers, but they're internal.
No, internal. Okay.
How about like requirements?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
Like,
What's the requirement?
like input to the developers. So
I think it's up to the teams to decide how to use the products that we have. Tech Docs is called, by the way. It's up to the team to decide how to use it. So if they, and I think it's based on that it will that there will be a doc site. It comes up into a central place with a predictable URL, and you can search. So maybe some teams might want to put some information up there, but might think it might pollute the local search. So, but we're not policing that at the moment at all. I think we're in the phase of just expansion at the moment, but there could be a time when we start to think about those times.
Shall we continue?
Sorry, yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
Thank you.
Yay.